Hey guys, I'm so excited that you're here joining me today to talk about how to take pictures for the holidays. Can you guys believe that it's already time to do this? I know I can't believe it. It's pretty crazy to think about that 2017 is coming to an end. And I'm excited to talk to you guys about how to capture your holidays so that you can just be in the moments and not stress out about how to photograph this amazing time. That happens once a year. Typically, we get family and friends together and it's pretty cool. So I do want to tell you that the tips that I'm applying now, you can apply to, or the tips I'm teaching you now, you can apply to any holiday. But these, especially the examples are with Christmas, but you can definitely use them with Hanukkah or any other holiday that you celebrate. I'm so excited to see so many of you guys tuning in from all over. We got someone from Omaha. I'm in Omaha. We've got people from everywhere. So I want to go ahead and get started. I know it's the middle of the day. I know that you have other things to do, and I thank you for showing up and joining me. I would love it in the chat box if you could take a minute and just tell us, what are you most excited about for the holidays? I know for me, I love spending time with family, but really for me, it's about slowing down and capturing not just all of these moments, but just slowing down as a family and just enjoying being together. So anyway, while you guys come in and find the chat box, if you have never been to one of my webinars before, I kind of want to tell you how it's going to go. So I'm going to spend a few more minutes letting everybody come in, doing an introduction, a little bit more about the web class we're going to do. And then we're going to dive into teaching. I have a lot of awesome tips that I've picked up over the years that I'm excited to show you guys to help you capture your holidays. And then I do have an offer I put together for you. After doing these web classes for so many years, I've realized that some people just want to know what's next, what's the extra step. They want the community, they want the hand-holding. So I do have an amazing offer I put together just for you guys. You'll have a chance to purchase that at the end if you want, but no pressure, but I like to tell everybody kind of how it's going to go. And then at the end, we'll also do Q&A. And then we'll have a giveaway as well. So be sure to stay until the end. So basically how this is going to work. So in a few minutes, I'm going to turn off the chat box so that you can stay focused because come on, you made the commitment to show up right now. And I love that. So I want to make sure that we honor your time and there's no distractions. So I do challenge you to turn off Facebook and Instagram and maybe put your phone away. And so we'll turn off the chat box, but I will turn it back on at the end. That way you can ask questions and we can clarify anything that I didn't make clear. I love that so many of you guys are talking about hanging out with family for the holidays. I know that's definitely one of my favorites, and decorating. Another thing I just want to talk to you guys about is the holidays can be such a time of stress for so many of us. I know I can feel that way. We have so many things that we're trying to cram in this short amount of time. And I feel like, especially me, you kind of put these pressures on yourselves to do certain things. And I found that over the years that photography started to become another one of these added pressures that I needed to capture the moment so perfectly. And I would get really stressed out if I didn't get these moments, because these are the kind of once in a lifetime type of things, right? Your kids will only celebrate this Christmas one time at this age that they are. Or maybe this is the one time that you get together with family. So it is important that we capture these times with our cameras, but I do want to challenge you to not stress yourself out about it, to slow down, to not put that pressure on yourself to have this beautiful, amazing, every photo needs to be frame worthy, because that's just an unrealistic expectation to put on yourself. And so I want to go ahead and say now that we're just releasing that burden, that no one has to do that it's okay to capture the snapshots every now and then, and it's okay to, set up a shot and get something that you really want. And so I'm going to be sharing those tricks for you guys, some things that I picked up over the years to help you capture these this time. So let's go ahead and dive into the slide deck. I'm going to keep the chat box on for just a minute because I do want you guys to tell me if you can see the slides moving, because that's always a stress of mine that something's going to happen and you're just not going to be able to see them moving. So give me a second while I get this going. This is kind of where it gets crazy. Let me know if you can see the slides and if they are moving. That would be awesome if you could just let me know in the chat box. I'm going to give you a second to clarify that. Okay, so it looks, oops, I got a little ahead of myself. So it looks like everything is working. Yay! Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate letting me know because I have had webinars where it didn't work correctly and we didn't figure it out for about 15 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the chat box so that there's no more distractions. And then I will turn that back on at the end. So write down any of your questions that you may have. Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to take pictures of the holidays that you will treasure. Because that's really important to me because that is the point of why you are spending all this time working on these images, right? It's because you want to treasure them for years to come. So I've done these web classes on different topics for the past 2 years, and I've realized that at the end I get a lot of questions about gear. And so I kind of just want to start off now and talk about gear. If you've been to one of my web classes before, then you know you've probably heard me talk about this. But basically, I did not start off with the gear that I have. And so I want to really stress that to you, that the gear that I'm talking about now is not what I started with. I started with a Canon Rebel, which is an awesome camera if you have that. It's a good one. And then I upgraded to a Nikon D90, and then a Nikon D700, and now I have a Nikon D750. But no matter what camera you have, it's exactly the one you need. Some of my favorite lenses are my Tamron 24-70 2.8, my Tamron 70-200 2.8, my Nikon 35mm 1.4, my Tamron 85mm 1.8. Now I have a couple other lenses, but these are the ones that I love so much. So they're typically always on my camera. And in fact, if you made me narrow it down, I would say probably the Tamron 24-70 and the Nikon 35mm are the ones that are definitely take up the majority of time on my camera. Now remember, I did not start out with all of this gear. It has been something that I've built up to. And if you're looking for what you should get as far as lenses when starting out, I always recommend the 50mm 1.8 or the Nikon 35mm 1.8. If you're a Canon user, unfortunately, Canon does not make a 35mm 1.8, but both of them make a 50mm 1.8, and these are amazing lenses for the price. So if you've been doing photography for any amount of time, you know that it is not cheap. It is an expensive hobby or business or however you run it. And I remember after I got my camera, I was talking to a friend and I didn't understand, why her pictures were better than mine. And, she explained to me this whole photography thing, and then she told me I needed a better lens. And I thought she was crazy because I just spent all this money on a new camera and it came with a lens, but that kit lens is not producing the images that you want. And so I saved up, I bought a 50mm 1.8, and it was one of the best things I did to start off with my photography, because then I wasn't frustrated as I went to learn more about manual mode and light and all this stuff. I didn't feel restricted by my lens anymore. So the 50mm 1.8 is around $100 to $200. Maybe it's something that you can ask for Christmas this year. And then if you are a Nikon user, the 35mm 1.8 is also amazing. Both of these are great. The 35mm will, if you do a lot of indoor shooting, does have more space for you to shoot indoors because it only goes out to 35mm versus 50mm. Okay, so that is my little spiel on gear, and we can talk more about it in the Q&A. So if you have any questions, write them down. But hopefully that covered most of your questions. So when it comes to holidays, we all have these traditions that we want to capture. And I want to help you learn how to do that, but also really to stress to slow down. Don't live behind your camera. I have been guilty of this from some of our holidays, and I feel like I miss it. And in fact, I remember reading this article, and I wish I could find it in the exact stat, but there's a statistic saying you are less likely to remember something if you view it through your viewfinder. That's really interesting, because if you ever go to a kid's performance or anything that's like a once thing, you will notice almost everyone is viewing it through a phone because they're videotaping it, or through their camera because they're photographing it. And I have been guilty of that as well. And once I read that statistic, that really stuck with me, because yes, I want to take these pictures to remember the moments, but I want to remember them, and I want the pictures to help trigger that memory, not to have pulled away from it so that I don't remember it anymore. So although, yes, I'm going to talk to you all about these awesome ways to take better pictures, I really do want to say to put down your camera sometimes. So, like I said, there are so many traditions that you probably have when it comes to your holidays. And I know for us, we celebrate Christmas, and so there's a lot for us going and getting the Christmas tree and looking at Christmas lights and the gingerbread houses, and it's almost gotten to the point where the traditions can kind of add a little bit of stress to our life. But I love capturing them with my camera. So when you're photographing your traditions, you want to try and think of ways to make them more than just a snapshot. Maybe that's the way that you compose the image. Here you can see I'm kind of using the trees and the grass as leading lines to my dad and my daughter at the Christmas tree farm. It just adds that extra little element to make the photo a little bit more interesting had I just centered them on the photo. And that is definitely one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of people making, is just centering the photo with your subject. So really challenge yourself to try different compositions. You want to remove distractions if at all possible. One of the quickest ways to make your photos look more professional is not to have the distractions in your image. So one of the ways that I like to do that is not by actually cleaning my house because my house is a mess, but more is to change my composition. So for this one, our house, I think this was right after we finished opening presents. She'd gotten some postcards and she wanted to write some letters to her friends. But the kitchen table is covered. There's stuff that's covered in the background. And so one of the ways that I make sure to remove distractions is two things. So I will change my composition. So for this one, I got in a little bit tighter. I will also make sure I choose the correct aperture that I want so that hopefully it'll blur out anything in the background. So you can tell by my choice of aperture, I have this awesome bokeh from our Christmas tree lights, right? It's kind of a fun added thing to this image. But you can also see, if you look beside the tree, there's stuff right there, right? Like there's a white blob and there's something else, but it's blurred out, so it's not a distraction for you, the viewer. Had I chosen a different aperture, then that probably would have been more of an issue and probably a distraction for you. And when you're taking these pictures and you want people to look at what you want them to look at, you don't want them to be distracted, which is why if you ever stop and look at professional photos and you maybe haven't realized what you're drawn to about them, but the odds are it's probably because there is a clear subject and they are helping you find that subject very easily because there's not a lot of extra stuff in the image to be distracted by. You don't want to forget the details. This is really important with traditions. A lot of times I think people always think of taking like the snapshot type photo, right? So a picture of the kids buy the cookies in front of the tree for Santa, right? I like to get more of the detailed stuff to remember them. This photo was when my kids were really little and they went super crazy decorating these cookies, but they were so excited to leave them for Santa. And so yes, I did get the photos of them decorating and I got them by the plate, but I really wanted to get those details. So don't forget to really stop and think about what else will add to this story. What details can I add? Here's another one of the gingerbread house. I loved how the icing kind of looked like it was dripping off, as if it was intentional. Let's pretend it was, right? Again, I do have all the pictures of them decorating them, but really don't forget the details to get in close. You want to use natural light as often as possible. So we just, you know, we're in the fallish winter months now, and so the sun is setting earlier. The sun is out less, it seems like, right? Because by, you know, depending on where you live, maybe 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the evening, all of a sudden it's dark now. And that can be a little frustrating, especially when you're taking pictures indoors. So one of the things that you could do is make sure you're using as much natural light as possible. So you want to open up all the windows. You want your subjects close to the window. So for me, my kitchen table is close to a window. And I do that on purpose because we do a lot at the kitchen table. And I want to make sure that that there's enough light on my subjects. Another thing you can do is try and do maybe some of these traditions during the day, if possible. I know that's a challenge. Like for us this year, we carved pumpkins at night, right? Like sometimes that's just the case. So if you're doing these traditions at night and you have to use that overhead lighting, one of the things you want to do is make sure that your white balance is correct. And this is something I go over in my course, but basically white balance is the temperature of your photo. So if your photo looks yellow when you're shooting indoors, that's because the lights are yellow and that they have messed with the white balance of your image. So there's a couple of ways to adjust that. One way is most DSLR cameras have a white balance preset. that you can use depending on the type of light that you have. So you can go into your menu and go to white balance presets. Another thing you can do is use a custom gray card. This one, gray cards are pretty inexpensive. You can purchase them. I think you can for as low as like $8 or $10 on Amazon. You'll fill the frame with a gray card. In most cameras, you have to do take a couple extra steps in your camera to get it ready to read the gray card. And then another one, which is actually my favorite, is to use kelvins for white balance. So Kelvin is your camera is reading the temperature, so you set it at a certain number. So if I'm shooting indoor with natural light, I normally set my Kelvin at 5250. But if I'm shooting at night with that overhead light, then I will bump it down to maybe like 3200. Again, like I said, this is stuff I dive into in the course, but I wanted to give you all of those terms. So in case you want to Google it or figure it out, how to set your white balance, you can do that. I also have a great tutorial on my site for that as well. And then another thing I want to encourage you to do is to capture these traditions each year. So every year since I was a kid, my dad has read us The Night Before Christmas. This copy, he gave it to my mom on their first Christmas together. And he gave all of his children one when we got married. But he brings this copy of his book when we get to spend Christmas with them, and he reads it to my kids. He also reads it to my kids when we don't get to spend holidays with them. And I have countless pictures of my kids looking at a computer over Skype or FaceTime as my dad reads them the night before Christmas. So you can tell this photo was taken indoors at night. It's Christmas Eve. This is the tradition. So I made sure I set my white balance so it doesn't have that yellow overcast. But I make sure that I capture this photo every year. And so I have pictures all the way back from when my oldest was 6 months old of my dad reading her, whether over the computer or in person, the night before Christmas. So really think about what are your traditions that you have each year, and how do you want to capture them? Every year I try to capture this shot right here, close up of the book with my dad holding in his hand and all the kids around him. I have other variations of that shot, but I like to take the same type of shot every year. There's another shot I take every single year that I'm going to show you in a minute. But this is another one of them. So with your traditions, think about that. Is there a way that you can set up the same shot every year? I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen that, those things going around BuzzFeed and other places where they talk about brother and sister recreate childhood photos, right? And then they go back, and those are really fun. But this is fun too, because you're not having to recreate it. You're getting the same photo every year. Now, we move all the time, so our photos are not always in the same spot, same house. Sometimes we're at people's houses for the holidays. Sometimes we're in a new house for the holidays. So to me, it's not necessarily about setting the stage, making sure it's perfect. Oh, you should be on this side of Papa, and you should be on this side. To me, it's not about perfection. It's about that moment. Let's get that picture of Papa's hand reading this book to all the kids, and I capture it that way. So I say all that because I don't want you to put this pressure on yourself that everyone's got to be wearing the same clothes or sitting in the same spot, or where were we? Were we all sitting on the stairs when we took this? Like, don't get bogged down in the details, but still take those photos. So with the holidays, you want to tell the story, right? That's the whole point. We're taking all these images. And one of the best ways to do that is to take at least 3 different angles. And again, this is something that I feel very strongly about. So if you have been to one of my web classes, you've heard me talk about this before. Every time you pick up your camera, you probably have something in your head of how you want the picture to turn out. At least I know I do. But when I force myself to slow down and take 3 different angles, I get some really cool shots that I didn't think that I was going to take. So this one right here, this set of 3 images are actually from one of my friends, Trisha Hughes. You can find her on Instagram at goeatyourbeats.com. She's an amazing food blogger. And she takes these awesome pictures. And so I wanted to have some variation for you guys. So this is a fun little series of them Christmas tree picking. Christmas tree, I don't know what she would call it. But she's taking different angles to tell the story, right? Here's a different angle of her son helping cut down the tree, and another angle of her son cutting down the tree. So 3 different shots, same location, same people, but you're adding that variation to help tell the story. And you'll probably get a favorite of the ones that you've taken. Like for me, it's typically never the first photo that I picked up my camera thinking I would take. It's typically one of the variations that I push myself to slow down and try something new. Because when you're trying new things and trying different angles, that's when you're pushing your creativity. And it's okay if some of the angles don't turn out the way you want them to. Sometimes mine don't. I just delete them. Like, that's not a problem. So here's another set. We were decorating our Christmas tree, and I loved the look of taking the picture through the Christmas tree. So the blurriness that you actually see is actually like the needles of the tree and the light. And so I'm always trying to find different ways to photograph this time. So I set up my tripod, I moved it further from the room. We tried, we got a family shot of all of us setting up the tree. And then this one wanted to play underneath the tree, but that's our life, right? And so I think that we just need to remember that you're capturing your life. You're not capturing these perfect moments, right? But I was able to tell the story of us decorating the tree with these 3 images, all different angles, all taken within minutes of each other, but without stressing out about it at all. Christmas lights. So no matter what holiday you're celebrating, a lot of people put Christmas lights up in their home, or they put Christmas lights up outside. And that's one of the biggest things people typically ask me about is, how do I photograph the Christmas lights? How do I get everyone exposed properly and still get the Christmas lights? So it's all about the bokeh, right? If you don't know what bokeh is those little circles of light. Christmas lights are perfect for this, which is why it's really fun to play with this at this time of year. But basically you want to stop down your aperture, or you want to shoot wide enough with your aperture that you're creating these little circles of light, which is the bokeh. So for this shot right here, this is a shot a lot of people want, right? Your child in front of the tree with the Christmas lights as the bokeh. And people will try this at all times of day, but I can tell you one thing. This is a shot you need to take with natural light. And I'm going to show you a pullback of what it looked like in just a minute, but I want to walk you through how I took this. So the window is off to the camera right. You can see that that's where the light's coming in. You can see the catch light in her eye. That you can see that big reflection of the light from, it was a big sliding glass door. So for a shot like this, you want to have a wider aperture. So that means a smaller aperture number. And when you have a smaller aperture number, it means that less of your image is going to be in focus. So I make sure I put my focal point on my subject's eyes. That's why her eyes are the sharpest part of the image. And then the focus is not as sharp behind her, which is why the Christmas lights are now big circles of light versus the actual looking like a light on the tree. You want to make sure that you're choosing your own focal point and you're putting it on your subject's eyes. When people look at an image and it's an image of another person, we instantly look at their eyes. We want that to be the sharpest part of the image. So you want to make sure, because you're shooting at a wider aperture, since less of your photo is in focus, it's got to be on their eye. You may need to raise their ISO if you need more light. Sometimes people think when you're shooting outside or when you're shooting inside during the day with natural light that you shouldn't have to raise your ISO. But actually, a lot of my photos are taken around 800 ISO, even during the day. And I have pretty good light in my house. So don't be afraid to raise your ISO. A lot of people think, oh, if I raise my ISO, I'm going to get more noise in my image. And you might have seen in my image of my family by the Christmas tree, there was a lot of noise in that image, but that's fine because I raised my ISO as high as I could get it. And it's better to have a little bit of noise in your image than to have an underexposed image. Because if you think, okay, I'm not going to raise my ISO and I'll fix it in Lightroom, if you go to fix it in Lightroom, your noise is going to be so much worse because it wasn't properly exposed to start with. So don't be afraid to raise your ISO, use natural light. And sometimes you have to just set this up. Like this is, I'm going to tell you right now, this is not one of those like candid moments of my daughter just nicely playing by the tree with the light and I just happened to catch this shot. This was a photo I wanted of her and so I set it up. But it's not a hard thing to set up. I don't use lights. I put a blanket down and I put her in front of the tree. So you can see that the tree is a sad looking fake tree, but this window next to her, there's a lot of light coming in. She's sitting on a white blanket, which helps reflect the light up onto her as well. And it's the aperture. So just to go back, this is the photo that it took. I hope it wants to give me all those again. And this is what it actually looked like. This one is really fun too, to talk about bokeh of Christmas trees or Christmas garland, or this is really fun to do at night with lights in the street or cars as well. To get a shot like this, all you have to do is flip it to manual focus. I love autofocus. I use that on all my images. I don't use manual focus. I have friends who shoot on manual focus, and I'm always impressed that they can do that, especially when shooting children. But for the shot like this, I have 3 different variations to kind of show you. So the first one, I just blurred it a little with the manual focus. Then the second one, I blurred it a little bit more. And the third one, I blurred it even more. So by blurring that, what I mean is when you use the manual focus, I'm just turning it and making it more and more out of focus. And so this is kind of just a fun way to capture the holidays. These are things that you can do when no one's around. Take these photos so that way when people are around and you want to enjoy the moment, you can. You're not stressing out about it, which is why I set up that shot of my daughter by the tree. There was nothing going on. It was a good time to take the picture because I really do like to be present in the moment. So this photo right here is the photo I take every single year, and I plan to take it every single year as long as they'll let me. This is a photo, I just call it Kids by the Tree. So in order to get a shot like this, and I think this is a really fun shot. I have more of these images, but I didn't want to bombard you with them. But when they're little, the magic of kids looking at Christmas trees is pretty cool. So this is typically taken on Christmas Eve, except I think last year we ended up taking it prior to Christmas Eve because it was Christmas Eve. We have a lot of traditions and it can kind of be a lot, and I didn't want this to be one more thing that kind of stressed us out. So this is one of those photos that I am comfortable taking whenever, because again, this is just a staged photo. So I turn off all the lights on that floor. So all of these are Christmas trees always on the main floor. I turn off all the lights. I don't want any light coming in from anywhere else but the tree. I want the tree to be the only thing reflecting light on their face. You want to set your white balance. This is really important. And this is really challenging if you have colored lights on your tree. I've had people ask me about that before. Setting your white balance correct with color lights is going to be your best friend, because the light you're reflecting onto your subject or your kids or whoever is going to be colored. But making sure that the white balance is correct will help out a lot. You're going to raise your ISO. You're probably going to have to max out your ISO on this one. When the first time I ever took this, I did have to put my camera on a tripod and beg my kids to freeze. But now my camera ISO can go a little bit higher, so I don't have to do that. But I will raise it. I typically have to max it out. You can see noise, especially in the third image as they've gotten older. I tell them to freeze. You want to make sure that your shutter speed is not too low. I don't like to shoot below 1/125th of a second because you kind of get either camera shake from yourself, or if your kids move ever so slightly, then they'll be out of focus. And then I just meter off of their face. And so I'm okay with everything else in the image being dark. Like, I actually like how the light falls off of them and all the shadows kind of are in the room, but their faces are lit up. And so you want to put your meter on their face. So if you're a Canon user, that means the center dot you're gonna put on their face. Nikon users, you have active focal points. So you can put any one of your focal points on their face, and you're gonna meter off of that way. Sometimes people ask me, what do you focus on in a shot like this with 3 children? Since they're all on different focal planes, I like to put my focal point on the one closest to me, because then the focus will fall behind them. It doesn't typically fall forward. So I do want to make sure that my aperture is at a number that will get them all in focus, but I'm also okay with it not being super sharp. Like in the second image, you can tell that my youngest daughter is not tack sharp in this image, but I'm okay with that, because to me, it's just more of this moment. I like to show them growing. I like to show just kind of their wonder they have with the tree. So Christmas morning, or wherever, wherever you open presents, this is kind of that chaotic time. And this is one over the years, I actually don't photograph as much anymore. I'm going to tell you my trick on how I actually don't even pick up the camera most times. But for us, for Christmas morning, several things that I do is I do open all the windows. Now, my kids like to sleep. And so we've been fortunate never to have to like open presents at 5 in the morning when it's still dark out. So if you're opening presents and it's light out, open up all the windows, let that natural light in. If you are opening presents early because your kids have gotten up early, then turn on lights. But again, that's where that white balance really comes into play. You want to make sure that your white balance is set correctly. I like to set my aperture at about 3.2. That is a good number for me. I actually typically shoot there almost all the time. Yes, I have lenses that'll go as wide as 1.4 or 1.8, but just because your lens goes that wide doesn't mean that you need to shoot that wide. So 3.2 typically allows me to kind of move around, get whoever I want in focus without having to worry like, oh, they moved slightly when I was taking the picture because I was shooting wide open. I totally missed the focus. Because this is one of those moments where it goes quickly, right? Their excitement for the present or whatever it is. That moment passes really quickly. Again, raise your ISO. I cannot stress this enough. Please, please, please do not be afraid to raise your ISO. Charge your battery the day before. I have woken up and realized my battery was almost dead. This is not the day that you want your battery to be dead. So I will typically charge my battery the night before, and then I'll grab it before we get going. Make sure your memory card is empty. These are just little things that I do the night before to make sure that I'm just set up and ready to go. If you want to capture their expression of like their excitement of when they come into the room and see all of, you know, Christmas or whatever their holiday, I like to stand by the tree, or you can stand in the corner of the room, and that lets you kind of see their excitement when they come in. We do have a rule in our house that like you can't go downstairs until I'm down there and ready. Get down on their level. So for me, I don't like to shoot above my kids. I like to get down. I like to show it from their perspective. And so that's really important. If your kids are sitting on the ground opening presents, get on the ground with them to take the photo. And then tell the story. Again, that's where the different angles are coming into place. Get the photos of the details. Get their hands opening up the presents, or maybe the presents strewn out all over the floor. So here's another, oh, I was going to show you guys all these while I was talking, but I got so excited. So here's some more Christmas morning. Again, just that, the natural light. I made sure my aperture was high enough so if I'm moving around. And this one is from my friend, Trisha, that I was telling you about. She is the colored Christmas lights. You can see by her choice of aperture that you still get that bokeh from them. And she got down on his level to capture this moment. So this is my favorite trick. I actually learned this from another photographer, so I cannot take credit for this, but it is what I do every Christmas now, and it's my favorite. I will take my camera, and typically what I like to do is if there's like a big present I know that my kids are getting, then I will snap a couple pictures of them opening it. But for the most part, this is what I do. I will set up my tripod in the corner of the room. I will put my camera on that tripod, and then I will set it to go off every so often, and we will have pictures of us Christmas morning. I'm in the picture. I'm not having to live behind my camera. We're capturing the whole thing. It's kind of like a stop motion video, so I will typically take all the pictures. I can edit them in 5 minutes because I just batch edit them in Lightroom, and so I'll edit one of them, and then in Lightroom and Develop, I'll select all of them and then push sync, because the odds are the light did not change because the camera stayed in one position. The key to this one is making sure that you're at an aperture that you're going to get people in focus. I don't remember the exact aperture number I've used each year. I want to say it's tough because you don't want the aperture number to be too high, because then you're not letting enough light in. But I would say start around 5 and then go from there to see if everyone's in focus. But I have a Nikon, and I have an interval timer on my Nikon. So I set it to do one shot every minute or maybe every 2 minutes. Depending on what you have and what your camera allows you to do. You can set it up to do, one shot every 5 minutes, or, depending on how long you guys are opening presents. But I want to show you what it looks like when you cycle through. And so with this, I will cycle through them, and then I will set it to music and the video, and I think I do like 2 seconds a picture or something, and then it's about the length of a song, because it's a couple hundred, I don't know, a little over 100 pictures, I think, which sounds like a lot, but when they're going quickly with a video, it's not that bad. I wanted to show you a video, but I wasn't sure how it would work with this and technology. So I'm just going to kind of show you with a couple of pictures kind of what it would look like. So here it is. Nothing fancy. These are just snapshots, right? But it's capturing the moment. And then we would start to figure out when it was going to go. And then we'd be like, okay, everybody look at the camera. So we got a couple of all of us looking at the camera. But it's kind of a fun way to capture your Christmas. Yes, these are complete snapshots. Like, they're not the photos that I'm going to frame, but they're still, they allow me to photograph Christmas morning, to be in the pictures, to be a part of it, to actually enjoy watching my kids open their presents, so that my eyes are viewing this, I am remembering it, versus, oh, let me grab my camera. Oh, did I get a picture of you opening that? Oh, you want a picture? Let me get, you know, and it's just, we don't need that kind of stress in our lives, right? So this is a really fun way for you to capture that without the stress of having to capture it with your camera. So by now you have tons of tips that you can apply to take pictures of the holidays. And you can definitely apply these and you're going to see results. You're going to get the photos that you want. But I found that a lot of people are looking for a community and step-by-step guidance on how to dive deeper into photography and have a place where they can talk to people about this time and specifically how to capture this time of year. So I want to personally invite you to join our Beginner's Guide to Manual Mode community. In this 4-week step-by-step program, you will learn the secrets of shooting with your DSLR camera. You'll be amazed at how good your photos can be and how quickly they'll improve. All it takes is just a few hours a week. And I love seeing when my students post a before and after picture. It's amazing to see what they're able to accomplish without spending a lot of time behind the computer. So I want you to stop hoping for a lucky shot or feeling frustrated that your photos are not sharp. Instead, I want you to start feeling empowered when you pick up your camera. And slowly I cracked the code and figured out how to get my settings right. And I put all the most important lessons together for you in the Beginner's Guide to Manual Mode. Here's what you're going to learn. You'll learn the exposure triangle. You're going to get your aperture, shutter speed, and ISO settings right. You'll set your own focal point. You'll learn what white balance is and how to adjust it. Remember, we talked about that. That one's really important this time of year with all this shooting indoors. You're going to learn how to see light in your own home. You'll uncover the secrets of shooting indoors and outdoors. You're going to add a gleam to your subject's eyes with catch lights. You'll play with bokeh, the art of blur, which again is really fun this time of year with all the Christmas lights. You're going to learn to compose interesting photos simply. You'll discover how to apply the rule of thirds. You'll use space to draw in the viewer. You're going to learn to avoid common compositional pitfalls. You'll take your photos to the next level with simple techniques for unforgettable images. You'll learn to frame your subject, use negative space like a pro, and experiment with dramatic light and more. So what all is included? You're going to get 17 information-packed videos that you can learn at your own pace. So these are great because they're short. I don't want you spending hours behind the computer, you know, trying to consume this information, especially if you're busy, especially this time of year. We have enough going on, right? But you want to get the basics so that you can capture this time of year exactly how you want it. So each week, there are 4 modules and they're released 1 week at a time. And this allows you to build on each module so that you're not just overwhelmed with information. You're also going to get 100 pages of PDF notes. This kind of sounds like a lot, but this is broken up over the 4 modules. And the reason I do this is because some people don't have time to watch the videos, or maybe they want to read the information. I actually recommend watching the videos and reading them together. There's 2 versions of the PDFs. One is a printable version. It has smaller images. That way you're not eating up all your ink. And then one is better for computers or e-readers or your phone. It has bigger images, it probably has more images, and all the settings and everything. You're going to get weekly printable photography cheat sheets. So these are awesome. There's cheat sheets. There's 4 on a page, so you can print them, cut them up. I like to punch a hole in the corner and put a D-ring through it. You can throw it in your bag and take it with me, or take it with you wherever you go. So if you just read something and you think you've got it and you go to shoot, then you can use this as a reference. And you're also going to get lifetime access to the course material. So it's important to me that you have this, that you can reference it, that you can come back to it, or especially with this time of year, it's crazy and busy, right? So you might not have time right now to dive into every single module, but this allows you to come back when things start to slow down. So here's some success stories from students like you. Since taking this course, I have grown leaps and bounds in understanding what to do and how to do it. And I am now creating the images that I've always envisioned because I have taken control. If you're afraid to take it off automatic, or you're dabbling but you don't really know what is happening, this course is for you. You will not regret it. That's from Heather. And here's a before shot. Before she realized how to use natural light, she was having to rely on flash. You know, we really stress how to use your camera so you don't have to use flash anymore. And her after, I mean, it's just night and day. Look at those skin tones and just the natural light, and the exposure is just perfect. Natalie says, this course inspired me, empowered me, and gave me the tools to capture my everyday moments. I am so much more confident and proud of my pictures after this course. And a before of Natalie, again, not sure how to use the light, the image is underexposed. And then after, it's just like, what? She's got those beautiful catch lights. Again, the skin tones, the exposure, the composition, that nice blurry background, everything that you're looking for. So here's the deal. I'm absolutely confident that this course will transform the way that you take pictures, use your camera, and capture memories. And as a mom who was frustrated with my camera, I had to learn the hard way how to use my DSLR. But I found that it doesn't have to be hard or frustrating. And that's why I've created this course, so that any beginner can quickly and easily learn how to take stunning images with their DSLR without the frustration that I went through. So go ahead and give the program a try today. I know you'll quickly feel total confidence. And I only want to create programs and trainings that are 100% applicable. So if at any time you feel like this course isn't for you, for any reason in the first 30 days, simply let my team know and we'll happily refund you 100% of your investment. No questions asked. It's our total happiness guarantee. So in Beginner's Guide to Manual mode, we work on building the foundations of getting your photos right straight out of the camera. However, I want to make sure that you have everything you need when starting out. So I have some bonuses for you. The Essential Guide to Editing Photos, the Lightroom and Photoshop edition. You're going to learn the ins and outs of editing in Photoshop and my personal favorite, Lightroom. We'll cover how to upload, complete a simple edit, and export your images for web and for print. I am a huge advocate for printing your photos because seriously, what is the point of taking all these beautiful images if they're just going to live on your computer? Plus, this is an excellent gift to give around the holidays. So I don't want your images to sit on your computer. I want you to create photo books. So we have this easy video for you to watch and see how you can quickly and easily make a photo book. Again, this is a perfect gift for you to give. In this webinar-only bonus, you're going to get pre-recorded real Q&A sessions from students who've been in this course. So if you're stuck in one of the modules and something isn't making sense, these Q&A sessions are perfect for you. You can hop on, you can hear students asking me questions, us going back and forth, diving into it. And I've had people write me and say that they absolutely love this feature. And because I know the importance of not going at this alone, we have a community-run Facebook group. In here, you can connect with other photographers as well as ask for feedback on your images, which is essential to your photography journey. Because if you're anything like me, your mom probably thinks your photos are amazing, but it wasn't until I actually had people looking at them and helping me that I started to see change in my photos. So I want to ask you, if all this course did was to help you to stop missing the shot and start capturing sharp images, would it be worth it? This is exactly how I went from occasionally lucking out with my snapshots to creating consistently great images. The total value of this course is $746. But I like to reward those who show up and take action. So for a limited time, you can get it for $97. I'm going to put the link up here in just a second. And because technology can sometimes be crazy and not work like it should, could somebody please just let me know if it's working correctly? If someone could just click the link, that would be amazing. And I'm going to open back up the chat box and we're going to do Q&A. And then towards the end, we're going to do the giveaway. So I'm going to take a sip of water. and then we will go ahead and start taking questions. Okay, perfect. People said the link is working. Yay! Oh, Kaylee, hi! She says she loved Beginner's Guide to Manual Mode. It's so worth the investment. Thanks, Kaylee. Awesome. Okay, so link is working. So let's go ahead and dive into some questions. Is there anything about this that I didn't, that you have some questions on, or did I forget to cover something? Okay. A says, wondering what your Kelvin is set at in the pictures in front of the tree. So I don't have that exact number in front of me, but I can tell you it's probably about 3,200. I typically have it set pretty low when shooting indoors because just the light can sometimes, it just messes with it. And so I want to make sure that their skin tone is right. So what I will do though is I will set it and then I will check my LCD screen and see how it looks, and then I'll adjust it from there. So I'll do a couple of test shots typically. Christy says, does your camera have a built-in timer, or how do you use a timer for Christmas morning? So my camera has what's called interval timer. So yes, it's a built-in timer. I believe Nikon, I don't know if Canon has this, but I can set it to say, take 10 pictures in 20 seconds, or take one picture every 5 minutes. But yeah, so it allows me a lot of freedom with my timer. So you'd have to see what your camera has. I know most cameras have a timer. It just will be how much freedom it will give you. Carla says, can you do a tutorial taking photos using Android phones? Oh, I wish I could, but I don't have an Android phone. I'm sorry. You can use a lot of these tips with phones to really manipulate your settings. Because a lot of times the thing that's a challenge with phones, and same thing with your camera when you're shooting on auto, is your camera's trying to figure out what you want. So it doesn't know, I want the light, I want everything to be dark, and I only want the light from the tree to be on, the children's face or something. Like it doesn't know that. And so that's why it can be a challenge when shooting with cell phones or on auto. Okay, will there be a replay of this? Yes, I will be sending out a replay of this web class because I know sometimes people get called away for a minute or they want to go back and take more notes. So Lindsay says, what custom timer settings do you use on Christmas morning? So I use the interval timer, and I set mine to 1 minute for an hour. We're pretty slow at opening presents. And then I don't even think it takes us an hour, but that gives me the flexibility that I don't have to think about it and come back to it. But it's just in my menu. I can go to interval timer. You can always search and see if your camera has interval timer. I know Canon has something similar. I'm just not 100% sure what it's called. To have this, I recently bought this program and it's amazing, so worth it. Yay, thank you. It's so fun to see some of my students in here. So, aren't the ended you up recommended compatible? I'm gonna guess that you're saying lenses. Aren't the lenses you recommend compatible with a Nikon D3200? Yes. So, 50mm 1.8, you will want the G version so that it'll autofocus with your camera, and then the 35mm 1.8 will work with a Nikon D3200. Allison says, aside from setting up a tripod, how do you capture beautiful photos that you're in? I will set my camera on bookshelves or on tables or on the floor. It's really important that I'm in photos. I will also hand my camera to people and tell them to take pictures of me. And I don't do this because I'm vain or I want pictures of myself in a vain way. I want to be present. I want to be a part of the memories. I want my kids to see that I was there. I was a mess on Christmas morning. I didn't have makeup on. I was in my jammies. I was on the floor having fun. Because to me, for photography, it's about capturing these moments so that my kids can remember it. And if I'm not in any of the photos, then that's not really fun for them. Because I don't know about you, but when I look back at photos of me when I was a kid, there are not a lot of pictures of my mom. And I would love to have more photos of me and my mom when I was a kid. So I try to make sure no matter how much of a mess I look, that I hand my phone to somebody or my camera to somebody, or I put it on a tripod, or I put it on the floor, or I put it somewhere. Just put it on something stable. I've used chairs, and I've actually used a bush at Disney World and set my backpack on it. So you might have to get creative. Amanda says, I've seen photos that make Christmas lights into shapes. How do you do that? Yes. So I actually have a tutorial on my site. If you go to click it up a notch and go to the search button, it's at the bottom, and type in bokeh, you'll find it. But basically what you do, and there's a tutorial on there, which is really cool, but you can buy these or you can make them. You're going to cover up your lens with black construction paper, and whatever that shape is, cut out in the center. And then on this tutorial, it shows you kind of how to make it so that it'll stick to your lens. You just set it on top of your lens, and then you take the photo that way. It's kind of a fun thing to play with. You can do stars or hearts or other things. Is there anything new from Ultimate Intro to Photography that I have access to? Mariah, shoot me an email. You actually should have access to this course as an alumni of Ultimate Intro to Photography. So shoot me an email. I'll get you taken care of. Lynn says, thanks for the encouragement to create photo books. I need to remember that. Absolutely. One of the things that I do, and I'm going to write a post about it here soon, is on that first slide, I don't know if you guys saw it, but I actually print photos on, I have them printed at labs. And then I try to do like one person in each photo. And then I get brown wrapping paper and like some twine. And that's like the card, right? Whoever's picture is on the present, that's their present. I did this a couple years ago. It's the first year I did it, and my brother was visiting. And my intention was that each person would get to keep the pictures of them, because it's always great to have, like, and it's not always just an individual. Like, sometimes if it's my kids, it's them with a friend, or them with someone who maybe isn't there that morning, so there's no confusion. But if there's multiple people, then I'll just write on the gift, you know, this is for so-and-so. But what was funny is my brother actually collected up all the pictures that I had used on the front of the thing, and he was like, can I keep these? Can I have them? And I just thought that was really nice. Like, I didn't think to give my brother a bunch of pictures of, you know, my family or anything. And so I do gift photos a lot to our parents. I get them printed on like this harder, I think it's like a styrofoam, but it's not. It's from my Photo Lab color ink. I think it's called styrene. And so every year they get 10 pictures. It's harder. They set it on an easel. And it's our pictures from the year, but you can print, you know, calendars, and photos make amazing gifts. I could do a whole web class just on that. Karen says, I also took Beginner's Guide to Manual Mode, and it's fantastic. I bought the 50mm 1.8, and wow, did it make a difference. Awesome. Thanks so much, Karen. Okay. Megan said the tips were great. Yay, I'm so glad. Vonda, yes, we will be sending out a replay if you missed the beginning. Becky says, what was white balance Kelvin setting for natural light? So for natural light, for me, I typically shoot at 5200. I have friends who their white balance is like, for Kelvins, they like it at like 5300. It really just depends on how warm of an image or how cool of an image you like, or the type of light you have, and even kind of like what color your walls are and what they're reflecting. So for me, 5250 works really well. But you can kind of play with it and find out which one, but that's a good starting point. How do you take a group shot and have focused faces? So again, I have a great tutorial on my site on groups. So again, at the bottom, if you search group photography, but basically what you want to do, and we talk about this in the course and how to make sure that everybody's in focus, is it really is all about your aperture. So you want to make sure that everybody is as close to being on the same focal plane as possible. You do this because you want to make sure that your camera, okay, I'm going to bring it back up so you guys can see me. I realize I talk a lot with my hands, and you can't see my explanation. Explaining focal planes. So your camera, you're like this, right? These are focal planes. So if everybody's on the same focal plane, you can have a smaller aperture number because this is what your aperture is. But if you have someone up here and someone right here and someone back here and someone back here, now everybody's on different focal planes. So I would say, depending on how many people there are, start around like 5. if you have multiple people, and like I'm talking like 5 to 7 people or something like that, start with 5. I can typically take a photo of my 3 kids really close together at 3.2 and be fine. But I like to try and make sure their heads are all close on the same focal plane. So really the focal plane is the one that you're really going to want to focus on. You don't want them all really staggered, because then you're going to need a very high aperture number. Okay, let's see. I lost my question thing. Okay, hold on. Sorry. Okay, do you have a recommendation for purchasing a refurbished lens? So if you are going to purchase a refurbished lens, which I have bought, there's nothing wrong with it, make sure you get it from a reputable company. So some of the companies that I recommend are B&H Photo, Adorama. Amazon is good as long as you're buying it from Amazon. I am very hesitant to recommend buying it from a third party on Amazon that you're not familiar with, but Amazon actually does sell camera lenses, so I would definitely check there. Brittany says, I just signed up, so excited, yay, welcome. Victoria says, are these tips still work if you don't have a DSLR? So you can definitely use some of them if you don't have a DSLR, but it really is geared towards people with a DSLR. So because you want that full control to tell your camera what you want it to do. I shoot with a D90 and like the camera, is it a lot of difference between the 750? So I love the D90. It's an awesome camera. Yeah, there is quite a bit of difference between the 750. The ISO can go a lot higher in the 750. It's lighter. I think the D90 had video, but this has video. But one thing I always tell people that I say, don't upgrade your camera until you know exactly what your current camera can't do that you need in a new camera. So if you're happy with the D90, like keep it, keep shooting. It's an awesome camera. What is your ISO and Christmas morning shots? You said to raise it high. So there's no recommended, like it needs to be at this, because it really depends on how much light you have. But I would say just keep going until you get your exposure correct. Look at your meter, get your aperture where you want it. Make sure your shutter speed's at least at 1/125th of a second. And then just kind of go from there. Start raising the ISO and don't be afraid to max it out. Stacy says, I plan to ask for the Tamron 24-70 for Christmas. I have the basic Nikon DSLR. Will the lenses work on my camera? Yeah. If you ask for a Tamron and it's a Nikon version, so when you're purchasing a Tamron, you just will specify it's for a Nikon. They'll put a Nikon mount on it, and it'll work on your camera, no problem. How do you set your white balance with colored lights? So I would set it with regular lights first, maybe like a lamp or some kind of overhead lighting, and then it's going to be as close as it's going to be with colored lights, unless you use Kelvin, or a gray card actually would be ideal for Kelvin lights. I have a Fujifilm mirrorless. Is this still applicable? Absolutely. Judy, this course will work with mirrorless. It works with DSLRs because you have the ability to take control and shoot in manual mode. I attached my remote to my camera on my tripod and do the same thing Christmas morning. That's awesome. Yeah, I forgot about remotes. I used to use them all the time. Yeah, you can very easily get a remote and shoot. And the kids love being in charge of shooting with a remote, so that's really fun too. My equipment is older and I don't have very good lenses. Are there ways to compensate for that? I'm not exactly sure what you mean, Michelle, by compensate. If your gear is older, then I would say either invest in a new camera or get a lens that is good. But if you're shooting manual mode and you're happy with what you're producing, then stick with that. Davis says, have you considered offering a next level course? I've never been sure if this course is right for me because I bought the ebook a couple years ago and I've been shooting in manual mode ever since, but I do struggle with light and white balance. I have toyed around with the idea of shooting a next level or teaching a next level course. I haven't mapped it out completely, but that is one of the reasons that I offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, because it's hard to know if your skill level is where it needs, if this class is going to help your skill level. So if you want to give it a try, definitely, we'd love to have you. We have a whole module just on light. And then actually the last module goes into more advanced techniques with light, like backlighting, silhouettes. low light. But yeah, the nice thing too in the Facebook group is you can ask for feedback, and that helps a lot with white balance, because I know it takes a long time to train your eye to start to see that. So I know people have really loved that. Jess says, is there a one-time purchase photo editing for beginners? I believe Photoshop is only available with ongoing subscription. So Adobe does offer Creative Cloud, which is the subscription-based, but you can purchase the courses or the programs by themselves. I have Lightroom 5. And I just bought the program off of Amazon years ago. I'm not going to get the free upgrades. I think if I wanted to get the new ones, I would need to get the Creative Cloud. But right now I'm happy with Lightroom 5. It can do everything I need it to do, and I'm not having to pay for a subscription. So you might have to get an older version. Like I said, I have Lightroom 5 and Lightroom 6 is already out, but I'm really happy with Lightroom 5. So you definitely can do that on Amazon. I wanted to know the settings difference for a Sony Alpha 68. Does it come with a built-in timer or remote access if needed? I'm not familiar with that camera. You need to Google and check and see. We do have several students who have a Sony. So if you're taking the course in the Facebook group, people are always in there answering questions specifically about Sony, but I'm not exactly sure what that camera has as far as built-in timer. Sandy says, I already know the things in this course, but I still get pictures that are darker than yours. That's literally the only issue. What's your suggestion for that? If your pictures are not coming out the way you want, then my guess is that the way you're working with the exposure triangle isn't where you want it to be. So I would say really go back to the basics and kind of look at the exposure triangle, because if you're not getting your photos right straight out of the camera, it's the exposure triangle. It's your shutter speed, your ISO, and it's your aperture, which is why we really stress that first week in that first module, getting those settings right and getting them right out of the camera. We don't do any editing in the course for the students because I want to be able to give you the feedback on the images that you have taken. And be able to help you that way, because once you can get the photo you want, then you don't have to spend all that time editing. So if you're not producing what you want, I would say go back and really focus on just the exposure triangle and getting the three of those things to work together. Okay. So do you get everything for $97 plus the bonuses? Asked Deborah. Yes. So you get everything that I mentioned plus the bonuses for $97. What is the lens you put on and leave for Christmas Day? So it changes every year, but this year it'll be either my 24 to 70 millimeter Tamron or my 35 millimeter 1.4, because those are pulled back the most, and then I can capture most of what's going on. Okay, I know you guys have a lot more questions. Sorry, we're just gonna tackle them. Like, we're gonna do it. Let's do this. Okay, so Nikki says, when using a gray card for white balance, are you setting Kelvin by eye, or can your D750 auto choose the white balance based on the card and remember it? When I shoot Kelvins, I am doing it based on my eye. I am choosing that number and setting it. If you use a gray card and you set up your camera to read your gray card, it will read that automatically for you when you go into that setting. You'll have to say, like, I'm going to set my white balance, read it off of this gray card. I mean, you're not saying those, but that's what you're doing with your settings. And then it will automatically know that. A lot of cameras will let you remember that setting and save it. So if you're always shooting indoors at night in your kitchen, you can set your white balance one time with it and a gray card, and then save it in your camera and then reference it again. Okay, I had to go backwards to find all the questions, so let's go back this way. Okay. Kim says, thank you for the course. I've already purchased it. You explain everything so good. Thank you. Okay, we did that one. Okay. Just signed up. Yay, welcome, Brittany. I think I already said that. Mary says she already took Beginner's Guide to Manual Mode and loved it. She recommends it. Thank you. Allison says, aside from using a tripod, how do you ensure you're in high quality images of your family over the holidays? So that's when I would just hand it to someone and ask them to take the picture if you don't want to use a tripod. And we kind of went over that. Just don't be ashamed to hand them the camera and say, put the focal point on my face. And then I would get all the settings right for them. But you can definitely do that. You can just say, you know, like, here, this is the photo I want you to take. I'm going to sit over here. I'm so excited. Okay, Shannon's so excited. Yay! Devin says she's taken the class after the last webinar and loved it, especially the Facebook community. It's in a really amazing group of people who are just honestly interested in helping each other, which I love. Deb says, I have a 24-70 Tamron, but it seems to drain my battery so fast on my Canon camera. Have you heard of this before? I have not. That's strange. I have not heard of a lens doing that. If that's the case, I would contact Tamron if you think it might be the lens, because it shouldn't be doing that. Lauren says, learning from the manual mode class is so far, so excited. Yay! Why did I switch from Canon to Nikon? Good question. And this is one of those do as I say, not as I do. So if you've ever heard the story of how I got my first camera, we were 10 minutes away from giving birth to my second daughter. I'd been wanting a DSLR forever. Our camera that we had was on a chair, and we moved the chair and the camera broke. But luckily my mom and my sister were there, so we still got the photos. My sister had a Canon DSLR. My brother-in-law had a Canon DSLR. And it was the day after I just given birth, and I called the camera shop and just said, can you save me a Canon DSLR? It's what everyone I knew had. After about a year, I had problems with it. I had to keep sending it in. Nothing is wrong with Canon. Canon makes great cameras. I think I just got a camera that I was having problems with, so I needed to get a new one. And my friend Megan, who taught me all about photography, shot with a Nikon D90. And so I was like, works for you. I'm just going to get it, which is absolutely not what you should do. Don't buy a camera just because your friend has it and you want those type of images, because I still don't take the same type of pictures she does. But yeah, that's why I switched, because my friend had a Nikon. Jenny says, Beginner's Guide to Manual Mode is the best photography class I've ever taken. Courtney does a great job of anticipating questions and encouraging. Thank you so much. That is just such the nicest compliment. Kristen says, I only have the lenses that came with my Canon Rebel. The 50mm will not let me go below 4 or 4.5. Will buying a new 50mm make a huge difference? Okay, so I think what you're saying is with the kit lens, when you're at 50mm, it won't let you go below. So that's one of the problems with kit lenses. They're not a high quality lens, and so they're often what's called a variable aperture, meaning there's a range of what they will shoot. So the lens typically will say like 18 to 55, and then it'll say 18 to 55 millimeters, and then it'll say like 3.5 to 5.6. So that means at 18 millimeters, it can go as wide as 3.5, but at 55 millimeters, it can only go as wide as 5.6. So at 55 or at 30, yeah, you can't, at 55 millimeters, you can't shoot as wide as you want because your lens can't do that. So yes, getting a prime 50mm 1.8 will let you go much lower. It will make a huge difference in your photos. Deborah says, what is the ebook about for $19? So that ebook is The Unexpected Everyday. It is a 30-day challenge to help you take better pictures of your kids. So each day there is a prompt for you to take a picture of your kids as well as a skill that you can practice with that prompt. So it's a fun little challenge. Laura says, what is the best height for using a tripod? Eye level with everybody. So if everyone's sitting down, that's where your tripod should be. If everyone's standing up, that's where your tripod should be. So treat your tripod as if it were you. Where would you stand? At what height would you stand for taking the picture? Your pictures are so awesome. I'm so glad I'm learning from you. They're so sweet. Thank you. You guys, I love doing these webinars. You guys are the best. Okay. Shelly says, can you go back and show us the slide with the lenses that you like? So I'll just tell them to you because sometimes when I go back, the technology gets kind of crazy. I love my Tamron 24 to 70 millimeter, 2.8. I love my Tamron 70 to 200 millimeter, 2.8. I love my Nikon 35 millimeter, 1.4. And I love my Tamron 85 millimeter, 1.8. I love Tamron. Allison says, thank you for your responses. I appreciate it. Awesome. Alona says, I bought it. Yay. Hannah says, what's your top key to getting clear photos indoors, especially with moving kids? Our windows do not give off great natural light. So that's something we talk a lot about in the course, is learning how to see the light in your house. And that actually, you probably have good natural light in your house. You might not realize it. But basically, one of the things I would say is your shutter speed with little kids is going to make a huge difference. So I don't recommend going below 1/125th of a second, because that is going to at least freeze the moment. But if your kids are running by real quickly, then I would do 1/250th of a second. Another thing to keep in mind is your aperture. So if your aperture and you're shooting wide open, you're probably going to miss the shot more often. So I like to shoot my aperture around 3.2. In fact, we have a whole video in the course just on helping you get that sharp photo, because I know that's a big challenge, but that's basically what we talk about. Lauren says, do you recommend a remote for taking photos while on the tripod? Absolutely. If you have a remote and you want to do that or pass it around, like that's another great thing too if you don't have a timer. Michelle, shoot me an email. You said you don't have your card with you right now, so shoot me an email. Wendy says, will you be covering white balance and Kelvin? So I do cover that in the course. We have a lot of videos on, there's one on Great Card, there's one on Kelvin. I think there might be one on presets. I'm not sure. I don't think so, but just kind of like the overview of how it works. But yeah, so we definitely talk about that, because white balance plays a huge factor into your images. Awesome. Okay. Shelly says, I'm a Ultimate Intro to Photography alumni as well. So shoot me an email. I sent everybody emails about it, but shoot me an email. I'll take care of you. Jenny says, who do you use to print your photos? So I use Color Ink Pro Lab. They're the ones that I gift our photos. They're the ones I print all my day-to-day photos with. For the prints that I put on the pictures, or that I put on the gifts, I use Artifact Uprising. They have these square, kind of, I don't want to say cardboard because that's not right, but it's a really thick stock paper. So that's what I use for the gifts. But for all my other stuff, I use Color Ink Pro Lab. Judy says, I signed up for the course last year. Do I still have access? Yep, Judy, just shoot me an email if you have any problems getting it. Linda says she just bought it. Yay! Okay. Hannah says, we spend holidays with extended family. None of them really want their photos taken or, allow me. They're unsupported. So what else could I do for photos? Well, that's a bummer. Just take them of your kids, I guess, and don't include them in the photo. I don't know. That's really strange. I mean, it's normal. I feel like for people like, oh, don't take my picture. If it's a sense of like that, just be like, you look great, don't worry about it, you know. But if they actually like don't do it, then just get photos of your kids or the people that you're in charge of. Okay, does this course tell how to set a Canon camera? You said you use Nikon. Yep, absolutely. So everything in this course is applicable to Canon, Nikon, Sony. And when we get specific about certain cameras, like Canon calls their focal points or their focal modes something different, I have that laid out for you. I explain it. So yes, I use Canon or I use Nikon, but I explain how to do the things on Canon. A lot of our students have Canon, so if you have a specific question, we can totally find the answer for you for your camera. Deborah says, is this course for someone who's been taking pictures for a while? That's a tough one because you could be taking pictures for a while, but if you haven't been taking them in manual mode correctly, then yes, I would say take it. If you are struggling with getting exposure you want, if getting sharp images, with using the light that you have available and interesting compositions, then yes, this course is for you. I know I took a manual mode course after I've been shooting for about 9 months on manual mode, and I was shocked to learn things that I didn't realize I didn't know. Because when we're self-taught, a lot of times there's holes in our learning because we haven't learned in like a comprehensive way. And so I remember taking that course and just learning all this stuff that I didn't even realize I needed to learn. I didn't know it was something I needed to Google. But again, that's why I offer the 30-day money-back guarantee, because you know your skill level. And if after taking the course, you realize that it's not at the skill level, you know, that you are further along than you thought you were, like, I want it to be beneficial to you. Terry says, what if you have a decent handle on the basics? Is this not appropriate? Again, it kind of goes into like, I don't know, like your skill level. It really just depends. Like the first module is just on manual mode. And then the second module is all about light, indoor light, outdoor light, bokeh, all sorts of things. The third module is on different compositions. And then the fourth module is on more advanced light and composition. So again, like I said, that's why I offer the money back day, the guarantee, the refund. I can't come with words apparently. So because I want to just make sure that it's of value. Do you have any tips for taking pictures of kids sledding? I actually almost threw a picture in there of me and my kids sledding. So shooting in the snow is really hard because it's very easy to overexpose the snow. And the odds are you're outside when it's super bright. Maybe you'd be lucky and it's an overcast day. So I always make sure that my subjects are exposed correctly and then make sure your shutter speed is fast enough because they are going to be coming so fast. So with sledding, if they're going really quickly, I would say at least 1/250th of a second or 1/500th of a second for sure. How do you photograph outdoor decorations at night? Oh, that's a good one. So I learned this trick a couple years ago. You actually want to shoot about an hour before sunset. It's so like kind of like dusk, right? It's golden hour. If you go out at that time, the sky is starting to come down, but it's not dark. So if you go outside when it's dark to try and take pictures of a house with the Christmas lights or something, it's very hard. But if you go when the sun hasn't set completely, but it's not high in the sky, you're going to give that look of it being nighttime, but still get the photos you want. When you say, don't be afraid to max out the ISO, is that still your advice for people whose camera allow 12,800? Absolutely. My camera goes that high too. I will max it out. I will shoot that high if I need to. Because if you need more light, you need more light. And that's what the ISO is there for you. Becky says you can check your local camera store or rent a camera lens for the holidays. Also lets you try before buying. I agree. Yeah, definitely check out your local camera store. Jasmine says, what tripod do you recommend? So I have a Manfrotto and another one that I use for travel. It's smaller. And then I also have a monopod, which is awesome for like the kids' concerts. Any brand will be Manfrotto are really good tripods. I would say don't get the cheapest tripod because you want it to be sturdy and stable. So Manfrotto is the one I recommend, but I do have like I said, a smaller, lighter one for travel. I think it was like $80 or $90 for that one. But I would say stay away from the ones that are like $20 to $30, just because if you're putting a really expensive, heavy DSLR camera on it, you want to make sure that it's a good tripod. Tammy says, is your Lightroom course compatible with CS4? So the Lightroom bonus, you would not be able to use for that, but the Photoshop bonus you can use for Photoshop 4. I forget what version we show in that one, so it might have things that Photoshop 4 doesn't have, but all the basics, you can definitely use it. My photos look flat and not alive. How do I fix that? I did already buy the course a couple weeks ago and haven't started yet because of the kids. I understand that. Your exposure triangle. So really work on the manual mode when you get a chance. That first module will help you a lot with helping your photos not look flat. Sandy says, does this course apply to any type of photography? Absolutely. So obviously a lot of the examples that I showed are of my kids, but this does apply to any type of photography because what I'm teaching you are the foundations. So you can use it on food photography, pet photography, travel photography, anything like that. When you have your camera on the tripod for Christmas morning, is your camera set to manual mode? Yes, I always shoot manual mode 100% of the time. Corey says, can you go back over what's included? So you're going to get 17 videos. You're going to get over 100 pages of PDFs. You're going to get lifetime access. You're going to get the cheat sheets for every week. And then the bonuses are a Photoshop and Lightroom editing bonus video, how to make a photo book, quick and easy bonus video, 12 hours of pre-recorded Q&A sessions from real students, and access to our private Facebook community. Sharon, to check my understanding, the information you have provided us is to use manual mode. Yes, this is all for manual mode, not auto. Barb says, can you explain metering off of the face? So when you're shooting with manual mode, you're going to put your meter, which is the sensor that's, when you look through your viewfinder, you see that like meter. So it's reading off of the sensor. Canon, it'll be the center one. Nikon, it'll be any of the focal points you have your focal point on. And then you're going to put it on their face, and then you're going to adjust your aperture, shutter speed, and ISO so you can get your meter on 0. Haley says, I just purchased the course. Oh, hey, Haley. Yay. Hannah says, so cool. I just got the D750. I'm considering upgrading from the D80. I feel like I maxed it out. I used the 70 to 200. Do you recommend the 750 for indoor action? I love your indoor shots. Yep. So I use my 750 for everything. That's my only camera. So I think it's awesome. I don't know if you meant the D800. I believe the D80 is not an upgrade. But if you meant the D800, that's a great camera as well. But I love my D750. Arlene says, I'm a very patient instructor and seems to enjoy helping people. Thank you. I really do. I have my background in teaching elementary school kids, and I love teaching. It just brings me a lot of joy. Katie says, I purchased the course a while ago. So far, I'm loving it. Totally worth the money. Thank you. Oh, you guys are awesome. Does your camera have a crop sensor? So my camera does not. I have a full frame camera, the 750, but the camera I started out with, the Canon DSLR, or the Canon Rebel and the Nikon D90, they both were crop sensor. Great cameras. What program do you use to reduce the noise in case you have to go with a higher ISO? So in Lightroom, you can do that under noise reduction or luminance. And then I will sometimes bump it up right there, but you have to be very careful because you can very easily go too far and then their skin looks really plasticky, which nobody wants, right? Whitney says, how long does it take to take this course? So the course is 4 weeks long. Each module is released 1 week at a time. It just requires a couple hours a week because I didn't want it to be a huge time commitment for you. But you do have lifetime access. So if you need more time to go over the course, or if you need 2 weeks to do module 1, that's totally fine. Okay. I have a Nikon D800. What is the best recommended ISO during a photo session with Christmas lights? Unfortunately, I wish it was as easy as I could just give you these settings, but it really depends on the amount of light that you have. So you'll just need to make sure that your meter is on 0. So I typically always set my aperture, then my shutter speed, then my ISO. And that way I can get everything where I want it. And then I'll just keep raising my ISO as high as it needs to go. G says, I bought it. My kids are grown out of the house, but the grandbaby's on the way. What do you suggest I practice on? Animals are not compliant with holding still. So I have a lot of students who have older children or who have grandkids. In fact, we had our first kind of baby in the group last month. Not actual baby, like someone was photographed their daughter having their baby. And so I've seen students practice on spouses or friends, dolls, food, the wildlife, their backyard, anything, because like I said, the stuff that I'm teaching is foundational. I think the only time that we really recommend you shoot a person or a living thing is when we talk about catch lights. And there are assignments and I encourage you to post them in the Facebook group, but yeah, so there's a lot you can use to practice on. What mode do you use to take photos of your kids? So I use manual mode 100% of the time. Katie says Color Ink is amazing, and they are. They're amazing. I love them. Tim is the owner. He's incredible. Deb says, it seems like it's hard to keep my shutter speed at 1/125th or faster indoors, getting the pictures light enough. Any tips for what I'm doing wrong? 1, your ISO is probably not high enough. And then 2, your aperture may be at too high of a number. But I would need to actually see your pictures to know for sure, which is awesome about the Facebook group, because you can do that. You can take pictures, you can put them in there, and you can say, I can't get my shutter speed fast enough. What do I need to do? And we will help you. Okay. What can you say about using the 28-300 4.5 lens? Because this is my favorite lens due to I travel a lot and I don't want to be changing lenses every time. If it's your favorite lens and it works for you, that's awesome. Keep it. Don't worry about what I think. Because my style of photography may not be relevant to your style. So that's great. If that's the one that you love, like it's a good lens, keep using it. Hannah says, any tips for pictures in low light, small space, Thanksgiving or Christmas photos with a 50mm for indoor photography? That is what I have. It is tough when you're shooting with a 50mm indoor, especially if you have a lot of people. So back up as far as you can. Go into another room and shoot through door frames, or just kind of get creative if you have to. But your photos just might be a little bit tighter in the sense that they're zoomed in a little bit more on the people. But as far as low light goes, just make sure that your ISO is high enough. Like, I know I keep saying that and you guys are probably like, okay, got it. But that is really the solution to a lot of problems in the winter, is that people are just afraid to raise their ISO. Barb says, what if your kids no longer want to see you with your camera? I get that. In fact, I have another web class where I talk about like how to keep your kids from running from the camera. Put it down then. Like, yes, capture a couple of the pictures, but if they're genuinely like, please stop taking our picture, then I always stop and listen. Like, okay, that's fine. Let me just capture a couple. Or I'll say to them, like, can I take like 5 pictures and then I'll put it down? But that's always a good one too. Dana says, if you've only used auto on your camera, what info do you need to know before starting the course, like changing your ISO? You don't need to know any info. That's kind of what is the great thing about the course, is it's for any level of beginner who's never shot on manual mode. And so you'll want to have either a manual nearby or just Google specifically how to change your ISO, your aperture, and your shutter speed. But we have a lot of people in this course and they probably have your camera. And so if you get stuck, it's always great to go in the Facebook group and just be like, I can't figure out how to do this with my camera. And somebody will be able to help you. Sandy says, do you ever use a flash? No. I don't. I use natural light. I don't have any external flashes. I just raise my ISO when I need it. Deborah says, do you put pictures on a disc to give to customers, or do you use a company like SmugMug? So I actually don't shoot professionally. I don't take on clients. I just shoot my kids and teach you guys. But what I do recommend is a company called ShootProof. They're amazing. You can upload your pictures to their site. Your clients can purchase directly from their site. You can hook up your photo lab with them and the photo lab will mail them your pictures. Super professional. I know the owners, they're amazing. ShootProof, that's who I like. Jennifer says, I have a Sony A5000, which is a mirrorless camera. Can I still get the same type of shots or similar as DSLR? Absolutely. Mirrorless cameras are pretty incredible what they can do. So you can definitely get these types of shots with your mirrorless camera. Deborah says, is the Facebook group lifetime as well? Yes, kind of. I don't know how long Facebook is going to be around forever, but there's no expiration on the group. If for whatever reason we need to move the group, you'll get access to that. I can't say it's going to be around forever because it's Facebook. But yeah, like there's no expiration date to the group. You can be in there after you finish the course. Okay, and our last question. Thank you guys so much for sticking around with me. Okay, GT says, hello, I recently purchased the 35mm 1.8. You said you love the 35mm 1.4. Is there a huge difference? I have not compared the two side by side. So I can't say exactly. There is a huge difference in price tag. The 35mm 1.4 was a big investment for me. But I love being able to shoot that wide. It is a higher quality lens. So yeah, there is going to be a difference. Whether or not it's worth the difference in the price, I honestly can't say. And what I would recommend you do is to rent the 35mm 1.4 prior to purchasing it, to see if maybe you could do a side-by-side comparison of the two. Because I would hate to say like, yes, go buy it. And then you're like, I can't tell a difference. Okay, last one, sorry. Photography is an expensive hobby. How could you get the lenses and equipment cheaper or use photography as an amateur to make money? I actually just wrote a post about growing as a photographer on a budget. Because when I started out, we did not have a lot of money to invest in photography. So purchasing a 50mm 1.8 will get a lot of bang for its buck. If you're a Canon user, I think they're about 100. If you're a Nikon user, I want to say they're close to 200. But saving up and getting that one lens, shooting with that lens is awesome. I shot with that lens for a while before I ever got another lens. But you can buy refurbished gear. Look on different websites like we talked about earlier. And just practice, a lot of practice. Keep going to these free classes. If you're not on my email list, sign up, get weekly tutorials free sent to your inbox. But there's a lot of ways that you can grow as a photographer. So thank you guys so much. Oh my goodness. I really appreciate you guys sticking around. I think I got everybody's questions. That might have been the longest Q&A session we've done, but it's so much fun to talk about photography. Thank you guys so much for joining and sticking around. Welcome everyone who purchased a seat in the course. I'm so excited to have you in there, to see you in the Facebook group, start seeing your pictures. I hope that you can put these tips into practice for your holidays. But really and truly, like I said, take the pressure off yourself. Just enjoy the holidays. Take the pictures, but also put your camera down and just spend time with your family. So thank you guys so much. Oh, the giveaway. Okay, sorry, so sorry. Okay. So the giveaway, I am giving away a seat in the course. If you've already purchased it and you win, don't worry, I will refund your money. I'm also giving away, so basically giving away my store, right? The seat in the course, my ebook, The Unexpected Every Day, which is that 30-day ebook challenge that I was telling you about. And The Style Photographer is another ebook on helping you find your photography style. So let me get a winner. Hold on just a second. And the winner is Arlene. Arlene, you are the winner. Arlene, you have a Comcast email, just in case there's two Arlenes here. Arlene, shoot me an email at Courtney@clickitupanotch.com, and I will get you access to everything. So thank you again. Thank you guys so much for sticking around, for joining. And like I said, please put your camera down. Please enjoy the moments. Take pictures of your holidays, but don't stress yourself out. Thanks, guys.